Well, it's Memorial Weekend in Lake Havasu, and we have a limited amount of staffing. So in order to manage the influx of crowds and obviously the increase in call numbers, we have to put on more staff, which means we call back personnel. In our case, I work on A shift normally, and this is B shift, so I'm pulling a second shift on B shift, and my detail today is on engine 12. So engine 12 today is manned out with 4 guys from yesterday's crew. We worked our regular shift yesterday, which was from 7 o'clock in the morning yesterday till 7 o'clock in the morning this morning, and then we start our second shift this morning at 7 o'clock this morning, work until tomorrow morning 7 o'clock. Now, of course, the intent is that we're going to go in and we're going to go to bed at 10 o'clock, get up at 6 o'clock and sleep through the night, and that rarely happens, and certainly doesn't happen on Memorial Weekend because there's, like I said, there's more calls, so we're up in the middle of the night. For now, on engine 12, the island is basically, it's full. They're still allowing some boats in. This is the only launch ramp that's open right now. The rest of the launch ramps are already closed because of the limit of how many parking spaces are available for trucks and trailers. So these guys are still coming in, but this will shut down pretty quickly. What that means to us logistically is that the island is basically shut off. We're not trapped on the island, but we're somewhat contained to the island because we can go code 3, we can get around anywhere we want to, but we're pretty much just going to hang around. We're taking all the calls on the island today, and we're not doing any of the other regular fire duties that we do typically. It's just to take the calls day.
This is our first big holiday weekend of the summer, which is Memorial Day. We end up utilizing a lot of resources to keep pretty much everyone safe. And that has to do with fire, police, ambulance. Our hospital is taxed pretty well also. Memorial is our first big holiday weekend, beginning of the summer. 4th of July can get fairly large size. We put on a really nice fireworks display. Good part of the summer. Everyone shows up. And then Labor Day is the end of the summer. We can't be every place at once. We put an awful lot of extra personnel on. We make sure our fire boat is manned, you know, for the 3-4 day holidays. But the whole operation is to strategically place our personnel and equipment so if something happens, we're able to respond without getting closed off. Meaning, right now we have an extra engine on the island. We have one bridge that connects the mainland to the island. If something would happen between the mainland and a piece of our island, that engine is the only one that can actually take care of problems.
Typical calls in the channel in the summertime on the big weekends are mostly about exposure. The environment obviously is pretty extreme. The people come out and they stay outside. They're not used to that. It's hot, it's dry. They tend not to hydrate very well. Instead of drinking good fluids like Gatorade and water and things like that, they tend to drink soda pop, tea, and alcohol. Those are all diuretics, and they all dehydrate these people. Along with that, of course, we've got the carbon monoxide exposure that we've already talked about, and the carbon monoxide tends to settle in the low areas, and that's exactly where the water is, the cool area where all the people congregate. Those are the subtle, passive things that happen to them. The other things, of course, are the boat traumas that we get. People will end up swimming in the channel, and a boat might start their motor, back up on top of them. We get some real bad trauma that way. We have personal watercraft incidents involved with boats colliding into them or them colliding into boats. The PWCs are very mobile, and they don't follow the normal path that the boat does. They don't have the same restrictions. They tend to run around like motorcycles, and the boats just, they run into each other. We have assaults. We have people who tend to get a little bit crazy down here, and we'll have an occasional assault. That's most of what we see down here. Well, you know, we preach to everybody down here that they should take care of themselves and protect themselves from the environment. So of course we have to do the same thing. And we wear light clothing, we wear hats with brims, we wear sunglasses, we hydrate constantly with water and with electrolyte replacements. We try and get in and out of the environment as much as possible. We have a trailer, it's a controlled environment. We go in there and we cool off a little bit and we take some breaks. We also try and stay out of the carbon monoxide as much as we can. We stay in the windier areas. We go to the hillside that's a little bit elevated up out of the CO, and we take breaks. We work. We'll rotate guys in and out if it looks like they're starting to get some of the symptoms from an exposure, whether it be the environment or the carbon monoxide. We'll go ahead and rotate crews out. We may switch the CO guys with engine 12 or guys off the truck. So we work them in shifts so that they don't get too much exposure. We work a 24-hour shift. We work from 7 in the morning till 7 the next morning, and we've got to be subject to call. We've got to be on our game 110% at any time that 24 hours. So we have to take care of ourselves in order to get through that 24-hour shift and be good for the public.
Okay, my name's Chris Bracamani. I'm a paramedic with the Lake Havasu Fire Department. I'm also in charge of the carbon monoxide monitoring that we do here in the Bridgewater Channel. Right now we're sitting in the channel. It's Memorial Weekend on Friday. It's about almost 7 o'clock. We're standing at the advisory board that we've set up that we adjust throughout the day depending on the readings that we take, and we let the public know exactly what the air quality is at. We're here in this specific area today because something's happening today that we've been following all day long. We have a nice strong breeze that's coming out of the south. We've been taking readings at sign 2 up at the very south end of the channel by London Bridge Beach, and our readings all day have been pretty low throughout the day because we've got a stiff breeze blowing through. And as you can see, the breeze comes straight through the Bridgewater Channel towards us right here with this south wind that we have today. Our readings down here at sign 12, sign 10 have been a little bit higher today throughout the day. We can sit here with our monitor at any given point and see that the carbon monoxide levels come up and down throughout the day depending on how many boats are coming through here and again the wind and the temperature conditions. Earlier today I took my monitor and I handed it to a gentleman who put it down by the water right by the back of his boat, and I had readings up around 50 parts per million. Standing up here, it would jump anywhere from 0 all the way up to 75. I even had a couple readings up in 80. It's just a matter of what's going on at any given time, the wind, and how many boats are in this area that are idling through the channel. That's what we're seeing. What we do is we take not just the one reading, but we take several readings throughout both sides of the channel. We add those together and we come up with a mean average, and that goes in conjunction with our advisory board. With the CDC has set the levels at, so we raise it accordingly. Again, I had some people that were here earlier today that were sitting here wanting to know what the levels were, and I could show them what the levels were, but that's not really a true reading because it's, like I said, at any given time it goes up and down according to what the average is. So that's just an example of where we're at and what we're doing down here.
Okay, what we're doing here is we're checking one of our 5 monitors, our data loggers. You can see this one's at 46 ppm right now, which is pretty significant, although we know why. With the way the breeze is blowing, and right now we've got some pretty good dense traffic going up and down the channel in this particular area. The fire department pretty much was charged with the data collection component of it, ambient air monitoring, and employee monitoring. And then the police department was more or less the action. If things warranted closing down of the channel, they were the enforcers. And over the last couple of years, I've gone ahead and took this over for the fire chief. I was the EMS coordinator for the department, and I'm recently retired now, but I agreed to help him out this memorial because I'm passing everything on to Chris Bracamani.
One of the things that we're doing also here in the channel is we have a joint agency participation here in the channel. We also are measuring all the police department employees that are down here in the channel. Well, right now today, just our local PD, we have 19 officers that we're checking. We checked them this morning at their briefing. We did a baseline study on them to find out where their carboxyhemoglobin levels are. What happens with carbon monoxide is it attaches to the hemoglobin molecule and it pushes off the CO and it pushes off the CO2 and it binds to that hemoglobin molecule. And then essentially as that level increases, then we see changes in the body. In mentation, increases in signs and symptoms, again, fatigue, headache, nausea, vomiting, all the way up into coma and death. Throughout the day, periodically, the police officers are coming in every 2 hours if they can. We allow them about a half-hour grace period in between, but there's pretty strict that they need to come in within that range and get tested. And what we do is we take a breath analyzer that we have. They blow into a balloon. and then we attach the balloon to one of our carbon monoxide analyzers, and that gives us our carboxyhemoglobin level that each individual employee is doing. You know, there's a little triad of contributing factors, one of which is the heat. A lot of the people that come here aren't from Lake Havasu. They come from Southern California and other places, and they're not acclimated to our heat. Some of them consume large amounts of alcohol. And when they're doing that, they're not replenishing their body also with fluids, so they're losing a lot of perspiration, they're losing a lot of their body fluids. That mixed with the alcohol, the heat, and the carbon monoxide is that little dangerous little triangle that seems to be part of the contributing factors as to why we're having so many problems in the channel. And we're just doing everything we can to collect the information that we have and make our recommendations.
The call came in right around lunchtime. We had a training for crew resource management. We were all out at the Island Inn Hotel when the call came out. And it came out as was a fire out in the parking lot of Sofa City. Once the first crews got on scene, even before they got on scene, they had a pretty good header of smoke in the air. They called for a second alarm, and it kind of went from there, and it immediately went to a full recall.
Remember Captain Tuneman says to me, he says, boy, this would be a bad day for a fire, because we had like 35-mile-an-hour winds blowing, and sure enough, right there at noon, we caught the fire. I happened to be first in on the scene, and it looked like it was just a tent on fire in the parking lot, but then it quickly started to spread, and we started getting reports that we had fires on top of the movies Havasu. We had fires breaking out down at the a quarter of a mile away down Lake Shore from it. We had brush fire caused on the highway side because of embers from that. We had somebody decide to come and look. He was a tree trimmer, and he had his back of his truck filled with palm fronds. That caught on fire. So I had the Sofa City fire going, which was a nightmare in itself. For just, you know, you don't want to hurt anybody or kill anybody, and we almost did. And then you don't want to lose buildings subsequently down the line, which we almost did.
I remember at one point just kind of stopping and looking around for a minute and thinking to myself, everywhere I look, it's black. There's nothing but heat, black smoke. I can't see. The whole day, for the middle of the day, was nighttime. It was just so dark, and the wind was blowing so hard that no matter where you went, where you looked, there were embers flying, big chunks of wood flying off the roof. I'd never seen anything like that in my life. We had placed ourselves basically downwind in the fire and took a defensive posture and put the aerial up, and I went to the top of the aerial to control the flow of water and try and extinguish and maintain our position. And it was like crawling up into a black cloud. Once I got up there, I couldn't see too much. There were times where I couldn't see really well, but for the most part, what I did see was black and gray. Felt some heat. I had communications with Rick Reese, was the firefighter that was actually operating the aerial, and I would direct him on how to move me to the left, to the right, lower, higher, and just keep kind of contact with him to let him know that I was okay and let him know the progress we were making. There were times I had to come down and refill my air bottle, and I'd go back up, and again, each time I ascended the ladder, it was like you were crawling into a black cloud.
It was very frustrating watching everything we did not working because of the wind.
The wind was nasty.
No matter where we put the water, how much we put it, it just wasn't helping. It was just frustrating. And I remember thinking, man, it was going to be a black day for our department if we didn't stop it there at that building.
What could have made that whole fire the total worst was if I would have kept the crew in there longer, if I wouldn't have gotten the reports I did, we could have had 3 dead firemen, which that's something you don't want. So Chris Bracamani was the captain on that, and as he was inside fighting it, he radioed to me saying that it's starting to get extremely hot, and he thought he heard involvement above him, so I asked if he'd pull ceiling. He pulled some ceiling down, said the fire had already breached past him, and he wasn't able to contain it. So I had to tell him to back out, and about 30 seconds after he backed out, the roof caved in. So we were lucky that day not to lose any firefighters. Caused kind of a problem was one of our other ladder truck was in the shop that day, and there was absolutely no way of getting it on scene because we could have used it to create a better attack. So I was limited with one. Kingman, Bullhead, Fort Mojave, Parker. As soon as they saw what they had, without even asking us, they contacted their departments and said, whatever you can send to Havasu, send, because they got the worst fire ever in their department right now.
It took a lot of resources. It was more fire than we had resources for. The guys everybody did what they could, the best they could do, and that was a fire for me that's probably hopefully a once in a career fire, but that was a landmark fire.
The hard part is you got that fire going, and then you're getting medical calls on top of it, and we've got all our resources down there, so we pulled in everybody we can. We had people from Parker, Desert Hills was here helping us out. Kingman and Bullhead finally showed up, but the response time helped us out, and they ran calls. So not just managing that one fire, we were managing I don't even know how many other things. And then everybody's down there on their cell phones calling everybody, hey, you should be down here. So then our cell phones didn't work, so we couldn't contact dispatch. Our radios were getting jammed up. We had a lot of issues that day because of such a huge event. But shoot, the PD was awesome. Public Works was awesome. Everybody came together. The water department was there and rerouting water towards us so we could have better pressures and supply. And that was a huge issue because your fire load was just phenomenal.
Yeah, I think that was probably the first time we've ever tested different departments in the city and being able to come together for resources and everything. That part worked pretty darn nice.
The city shut down and pretty much everybody concentrated on that building that day, and it was neat to see all the support.
The amount of looky-loos that we call them, people that came and showed up and watched, though, that was also something to manage and try to control. Because everybody wanted to see it, but it caused a little bit of issue for us for traffic problems. We had engines that actually couldn't get down there until people moved their cars. I think it's the worst fire I've ever experienced. I've been on 24 years, and I can say that's the worst one I've ever been on. And on top of it, I was the incident commander of it, which was quite a big thing. Quite a stress, you might say, that day.
Some of the notable things I saw out there were sheets of plywood, 4x4, some 3x4 in size, that were just burning, that would just lift from the amount of flame and heat. They would just pick up and go right over my head and fly past.
If it wasn't for the wind, it would have been a totally different outcome, I think. I think the building probably would have still been standing, and we would have just had a big old tent fire that day. And that 10,000 square foot tent fire, was it? Tent?
Yeah.
Set up, and then a 40,000 square foot building. So it full of furniture and no sprinklers. And if we would have had a sprinkler system, that would have probably helped us out some too. But the building was an old building, and
sprinklers would at least knocked it down to where we could have managed it by the time we got there.
We would have been able to control a little bit better. So
we had an eyewitness in the restaurant across the street eating lunch, and it happened to be looking over. Saw there was a stack of recliners and boxes that had just been delivered the night before. And if I recall, I think they were anywhere from 3 to 6 recliners stacked high, and probably about 7 or 8 wide. And there was an employee out there putting them together one by one. He was using a cordless drill and some hand tools. There was no electrical sources out there to where he was working at. And the eyewitness had happened to look up and saw one side of the boxes, the opposite side where he was working, burning. And she said the fire traveled right up to the top of the boxes and just overwhelmed that stack pretty quick, to the point the employee didn't even know what was going on himself for about a minute, and he realized when he smelled smoke. So we knew exactly the point of origin. That was pretty easy with the eyewitness. And so we eliminated all electrical sources, anything that could have started the fire accidentally. He was not a smoker, the employee, and again, he wasn't using any type of tools that could have started a fire. So we then went on, an accidental source would probably be a cigarette in a parking lot. And with the wind that day, we actually did a test, and we walked all the way over to McDonald's with a fully lit cigarette and placed it on the ground, and we watched the wind take it all the way across to Sophia City. So we knew that there was no problem, that could easily happen. And some of the employees did say that they had had a couple customers coming and going shortly before the fire started that were actually right by the tent. So we just figured it had to be a cigarette that started the fire. We've eliminated all their sources, with the customers coming and going. We've just experienced too many times see a smoker get out of the vehicle, toss a cigarette on the ground as he's walking into the business.
So if you're a smoker, take care of your butts. Put them in the proper disposal container. It's a sad thing that a family and a community lost a business like that, and that the guys have to put themselves out for something that could be prevented.